Ladies and gentlemen. Let me tell you something, brother.
It's Talk Wrestling Live with Felix the Cat Katlovski
and Gemini Joe.
It doesn't matter what your name is.
We heard rumbling. No, we heard rumors. Homicide. Tonas. 5150 at LAX.
Listen live on Mondays at 4 p.m. on NorthCoastUnderground.com.
And follow us on Twitter at TWL 24/7.
I'm in no mood for your wisecrack. Let's get it on.
Hey wrestling fans, this is Felix the Cat Katlovski, and this is Talk Wrestling Live. We're here to talk about everything Impact Wrestling this week, with the show from April 26th from Impact Wrestling last week on the Pursuit channel and the Twitch app. So we'll be talking about that, recapping everything on Fear After Dark, as well as what happened at last night's show at Rebellion on April 28th. So let's get started with that.
Are you scared? It's time for Fear After Dark.
I thought this was fun and games.
Fear is a funny thing.
El celo, miedo.
Fear was meant for the art of survival. I am the new beginning.
Because we are for Ohio. By Ohio. Because we are Ohio versus everything.
I'm better than every single one in that locker room. Tessa Blanchard is undeniable.
I'm not a man. I'm a machine.
Hey everybody, this is Felix the Cat Katlovski here on Talk Wrestling Live. This is Fear After Dark. Like I said, we're recapping everything from last week's April 26th show from the Pursuit channel and the Twitch app. We're also going to be recapping what happened at Rebellion last night on April 28th. So previously on Impact Wrestling, like I said last week on the April 26th show, after Ace Austin defeated Aiden Prince after their match, Ace Austin continued beating down Aiden Prince, but you had P.D. Williams, he made the save as he came to the rescue of Aiden Prince. So P.D. Williams attempted to apply his Canadian Destroyer, and if you've never seen it before, it looks like a flipping or rotating pile driver into a pin. P.D. wasn't able to fully perform the move. You had Ace Austin escaping the Canadian Destroyer, but P.D. Williams took on Aiden Prince, as well as Ace Austin, as well as Cousin Jake from the Deaners. He's a new debut for Impact Wrestling in that tag team with Cody Deaner. Eddie Edwards is involved in this match as well. Now, it was a one fall to a finish in this match. If the first person was to pin somebody for that 3 count, they would be victorious in the match. It's really similar to the Fatal 4-Way. So Ace Austin went for a cheap maneuver by grabbing P.D. Williams' tights to score the pin, but Ace made an impressive pay-per-view debut by defeating P.D. Williams and 3 other opponents. So congratulations to Ace Austin. Then we had Rohit Raju in action with Raj accompanying him from the Desi Hit Squad, and Rohit Raju took on Scarlett Bordeaux, and Fallah Bahh was there to give Scarlett Bordeaux support. So Scarlett and Fallah Bahh, they've already beat the Desi Hit Squad as a team on Impact Wrestling about twice now, and did we see it again at Rebellion? So Scarlett took out both Rohit Raju and Raj, landing that cross body from the top of the turnbuckle to the outside. Now the finish of this match saw Rohit Raju getting cocky and really underestimating Scarlett Bordeaux as he taunted, getting ready to do Scarlett Bordeaux's own move, the stink face. Now that's also Rikishi's own move, but Scarlett nailed Rohit Raju between the legs, and then Scarlett Bordeaux went for the pin on Rohit Raju for the win, and Rohit Raju really must have felt embarrassed, and it probably didn't end well for Rohit Raju because if you know Gama Singh, he's trained these guys to compete at their best. Gama Singh must have been really unhappy when he saw Rohit Raju losing to Scarlett Bordeaux. I mean, Gama Singh probably beat him to death backstage. You've seen those rituals that they do before their matches to get ready. And then you had the Rascals, and they took on Moose along with the North. Now that's Josh Alexander and Ethan Page. Last week on April 26th on Impact Wrestling, the Rascals, they received a suspicious letter. The Rascals were thinking it was one of the members of the Rascals that wrote this letter, and it was calling on all of them to meet somewhere backstage all in one place. Now, like I said, nobody knew who actually wrote the letter, and even the Rascals were thinking it was somebody from within their team. But then Moose showed up, and he was being friendly with the Rascals, which was kind of ironic because he's beat them up week after week. I think only Desmond Xavier was the only one to actually defeat Moose, but Desmond Xavier had help from his own team, the Rascals. So Moose even said that he'd bring a friend to hang out with the Rascals, and the Rascals thought it was going to be a female escort or someone named LaFonda. I think we saw LaFonda previously when Moose showed up with the Rascals, and I think the Rascals were kind of interested in LaFonda. But when everybody thought LaFonda was coming out, it turned out to be Moose's new Canadian friends, now known as the North in Impact Wrestling, and I mentioned that's Josh Alexander and Ethan Page. So Moose and his new pals, the North, beat down the Rascals backstage. And remember, like I said, Desmond Xavier, he's been the only Rascals member to beat Moose so far. But that victory received assistance by Desmond's own partners from the Rascals, his own teammates, Zach Wentz and Trey Miguel. So Josh Matthews pointed out that at Rebellion, how in Moose's NFL days as a lineman, he was watching the back of his teammates, and now at Rebellion, he's watching Ethan Page and Josh Alexander's back. So Moose was still mad that the Rascals made fun of him for getting rejected by Melissa Santos, an Impact Wrestling backstage interviewer, but Moose was also wearing a pink suit. So the Rascals, maybe they had reasons to laugh at Moose. I mean, it wasn't just that he got rejected, he wore this pink suit. It kind of looks ridiculous. So towards the beginning of their match, Moose and the North had the momentum going, just overpowering all of the Rascals. But as time went on, the Rascals picked up their pace, and there were cannonballs and all kinds of high-risk moves being done by the Rascals as they were taking the momentum from Moose and the North. Just then, Moose, Ethan Page, and Josh Alexander did a great job isolating Desmond Xavier. First, the North beat down Desmond, and then Moose said, "Let me have him," as Moose then speared Desmond, and that's how Moose got his team the win with that pin. So then it was time for Taya Valkyrie taking on Jordynne Grace. Now, Jordynne Grace previously beat Taya Valkyrie because Taya got counted out of her match for staying outside of the ring for too long. But she kept her Knockouts championship, and she had Jordynne Grace and Madison Rayne battle for a shot at Taya Valkyrie's Knockouts championship. Now, with Jordynne Grace coming out with the victory over Madison Rayne, that's how Jordynne earned her way to getting an opportunity to face Taya at Rebellion. Now, on April 26th last week on Impact Wrestling, Taya Valkyrie showed up to a local gym that Jordynne Grace was at, and Taya just attacked Jordynne Grace, and Jordynne didn't know what was going on. She didn't see it coming. In attacking Jordynne Grace, Taya DDT'd Jordynne on one of the weights on the floor. So Jordynne must have had her head ringing with that. Now, at Rebellion, Josh Matthews mentioned how Johnny Impact demanded that he and Taya be given tickets to the Toronto Raptors game during the playoffs in Toronto, with Johnny and Taya representing Impact Wrestling as the champions. Now, Taya was taunting the crowd in Canada, even though she's Canadian herself, and she's moved to Los Angeles to be with her husband, Johnny Impact. So during their match at Rebellion, Taya was often targeting Jordynne Grace's arms and the shoulder area in submission holds. So Jordynne Grace managed to hit the Grace Driver, also known as the Michinoku Driver. She also hit the Muscle Buster, but at some point, Jordynne Grace's arm was in so much pain that she almost dropped Taya within one of those moves. Now later, Taya managed to take out the other arm, and Taya hit the Road to Valhalla to retain her Impact Knockouts Championship. This win for Taya wasn't only important because Taya retained her belt, but this was Jordynne Grace's first loss at Impact Wrestling. So that's significant right there. So we'll be talking more about Impact Wrestling's Rebellion show, the pay-per-view from last night, as well as recapping last week's Impact Wrestling in the process, right after these messages.
Ride the winds, flying far and soaring like a hawk.
Run a marathon with the endurance of a tiger.
Swim across the ocean like a dolphin.
Beast Energy X. Do you have it in you?
Buy Beast Energy X at all Waffle Max locations and unleash the beast in you.
Join the Beast Energy X fan club and get free perks. Sign up by following us on Twitter at Beast Energy X.
Follow us on Twitter at TWL 24/7.
I'm not finished with you!
And now, let's get back to the show.
Hey wrestling fans, this is Felix the Cat Katlovski. If you're just joining us on our live stream, we were just recapping Impact Wrestling from April 26th, as well as going over how things came to be at Rebellion. As I mentioned, Rebellion was last night on April 28th, and we were just talking about Taya Valkyrie's match against Jordan Grace. Taya Valkyrie retained her championship, and it was significant because it was her first loss at Impact Wrestling. So now we're about to talk about the X Division Championship match with Sami Callihan and Rich Swann. So previously, Sami Callihan, he brought Rich Swann's personal business onto a global stage. When he talked about Swann's parents, who were deceased, Rich Swann had nobody to turn to, but Callihan helped him out. And Callihan, he's crazy. I mean, he called Rich Swann his brother, but Callihan once sent Rich Swann to the hospital because what he said, he loves him. So that's pretty weird. That's actually what Sami Callihan said to Rich Swann. I mean, that he loved him. I mean, who does that? Sending somebody to the hospital, calling him his brother, telling him that he loves him, and then, like, that's just whack. So last week on April 26th on Impact Wrestling, Rich Swann visited OVE's compound, but Callihan left his so-called brother, Rich Swann, in the cold, and he didn't even open the doors to him. So Callihan was carried to the ring on Madman Fulton's shoulders at Rebellion, and the match between Sami Callihan and Rich Swann was changed to an OVE rules match, which pretty much means there are no rules. However, Sami Callihan only got what he wanted after he was told that if his buddies from OVE got involved, whether it was the Christ brothers, Jake and Dave Christ, or Madman Fulton, they would all be fired if they interfered. So Sami Callihan must have told them to all stay back. So Sami Callihan really woke up a monster in Rich Swann because Rich Swann showed much more of a violent side, which we're not really used to seeing just yet. Rich Swann, he brought a staple gun to the ring, and Rich Swann stapled Sami Callihan's shoulder after Rich Swann clotheslined Sami Callihan. And Rich Swann again used that stapler on Callihan, this time on his head. Don Callis mentioned how this violent side of Rich Swann could play into the hands of Sami Callihan, as weapons like steel chairs and the garbage cans were all introduced to the match. Sami Callihan, he's more known dealing with violent matches and weapons and all that kind of stuff. Rich Swann, he's more of a high flyer. It was kind of interesting seeing Rich Swann out of his element into this hardcore style of a match. So sure enough, Sami Callihan would take the staple gun back from Rich Swann, and it was Rich Swann who ended up being stapled in the mouth. So Sami Callihan then hit Rich Swann with a chair as Rich Swann was running right at him. So full force right there. Head-on collision pretty much. And we saw Sami Callihan go for a pile driver from the ring apron while the referees were checking on Rich Swann's condition. And then you had Sami Callihan, he had really bad intentions setting up a guardrail against the entrance ramp. Callihan suplexed Rich Swann into a chair, sending him to take a seat and breaking that chair. And this just made Rich Swann stronger as he was swinging a wet floor sign at Callihan. Rich Swann hit a cutter on Callihan on the ramp, and Don Callis sold it like it was one of the commentators from soccer yelling a goal. So the guardrail, it was set up against the ramp and the steel steps earlier in the match, and Callihan did the pile driver on Rich Swann as the metal guardrail bent in half. I mean, you just had to see it. It was like a horror film. And Sami Callihan, he brought a giant Lego from under the ring, which was filled with smaller pieces of Legos. Now imagine what a drop on the head would feel like on that jagged edge of a Lego. Now Swann did a Hurricane Rana on Callihan, landing on his back on the Legos, so that had to be painful right there. Now Sami Callihan, he threw white powder into the face of Rich Swann. It temporarily blinded Rich Swann, and it allowed Sami Callihan to hit a pile driver from the top of the turnbuckle with Rich Swann's head making impact with the Legos. Somehow, Rich Swann kicked out, and Sami Callihan was surprised, so Callihan brought out a baseball bat wrapped in barbed wire. Now, Rich Swann dared Sami Callihan to hit him with that bat, but just then, Rich Swann grabbed Sami Callihan in the groin area, and Rich Swann disarmed Sami Callihan, allowing Rich Swann to take control of that bat. Now, Sami Callihan told Rich Swann once again that he loved him, but Rich Swann didn't listen. He just hit Callihan with the barbed wire part of the baseball bat, and that's when Rich Rich Swann applied the crossface on Sami Callihan with the barbed wire bat, and Callihan just tapped out. And that's how Rich Swann retained his X Division championship. So then we had Tessa Blanchard, and she took on Gail Kim. Now, Gail Kim explained why she came back to Impact Wrestling as an in-ring performer, and she talked about how she loved her spot as a backstage agent, giving back to the business and teaching future and current knockouts about wrestling. But she just couldn't get through to Tessa Blanchard, and Tessa didn't listen to Gail Kim, and Gail said that Tessa reminded her of herself when she was younger in her career, when Gail Kim had a chip on her shoulder. Gail Kim always wanted to prove something. So Gail explained that she wasn't coming out of retirement for this one match because she missed being part of the in-ring action, but that she wanted to teach Tessa Blanchard a lesson that nobody could get through to her, and that was about respect. So Tessa Blanchard sent a rebuttal to Gail Kim, arguing that Tessa earned respect. Tessa mentioned how she came from a family of respect. Tessa's grandfather was in the Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame, while her father, Tully Blanchard, was in 2 Hall of Fames. Now, I believe Tessa earned respect when she became the Knockouts champion, and everybody from the WWE to Women of Wrestling, everybody's talking about Tessa Blanchard. Everybody says they want Tessa Blanchard in the WWE, all that stuff. So she's definitely created a lot of buzz when she held the Knockouts championship. Everybody's still talking about her. So speaking about respect, Tessa admitted that she had a lot of respect for Gail Kim up until Tessa was costed the championship back in January at Homecoming by Gail Kim. Gail Kim was the special guest referee, and Tessa wanted to make Gail Kim regret ever getting involved in her match. So Tessa's father, Tully Blanchard, he was backstage, and he agreed with what Tessa had said, but Tessa still had to prove herself by beating Gail Kim. And that must have been great motivation, but also a lot of pressure for Tessa to deliver on. Now, late into the match, Tessa applied some kind of move on Gail, and it sent Gail falling off the ramp to the floor below, and she went head first. And that's when Gail Kim's husband and world-famous chef Robert Irvine looked really concerned for his wife as he was sitting in attendance. Now, if you remember, Tessa Blanchard went to his restaurant when Robert wasn't there, and she just wreaked havoc over there. She poured food on some of the staff. She kicked out the dishwasher. She called Robert. She pretty much called him a phony because he didn't show up to his own restaurant, and it was some other chef that was working, so somehow that made Robert a phony in Tessa's mind. Just then, Tessa Blanchard would add a new submission move to her artillery as Gail Kim tapped out. So Tessa Blanchard beat Gail Kim, and Tessa celebrated with her father, Tully Blanchard, after the match. Now, Tully told his daughter, Tessa Blanchard, that she made him proud, and then the unexpected happened. It looked as if Gail Kim was passing the torch to Tessa Blanchard after Tessa beat Gail Kim in that match, and they hugged it out. Tessa went her own way, and the fans thanked Gail Kim for her performance in the match, for entertaining the fans for all these years, whether it was the WWE or Impact Wrestling. Even Tessa mentioned that Gail Kim was women's wrestling long before there was a women's wrestling revolution. So we'll be talking more about Rebellion right after these messages.
Man, this sucks. I can't go to the baseball game because I have to pack. We're moving next week and I have to get enough large boxes.
Did someone say oxes?
No, I said boxes. Ox's boxes are strong like an ox and durable for moving trips.
They're also biodegradable, which is just great for the environment. Download the Ox's Boxes app on your phone today, and your first box is free. And now we're offering same-day deliveries if you order before 4 p.m. on any given business day. Like us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter.
Follow us on Twitter at TWL 24/7.
I'm not finished with you!
And now, let's get back to the show.
Hey everybody, this is Felix the Cat Katlovski, and this is Talk Wrestling Live on NorthCoastUnderground.com, where the Underground starts with you. And this is still Fear After Dark, where we are recapping what went down last week on April 26th from Impact Wrestling's Pursuit channel and the Twitch stream. We're also talking about what went down last night at Rebellion, the pay-per-view that took place on April 28th. So we were just talking about Gail Kim, how she took on Tessa Blanchard, and how Gail Kim came out of retirement for one last match, not because she missed being in the ring, but because she wanted to teach Tessa Blanchard a lesson about respect. Now, Gail Kim cost Tessa Blanchard her Knockouts Championship back at Homecoming in January when Gail Kim was a special guest referee, but Gail Kim went into this match and she tapped out. So Gail Kim possibly making her retirement now, leaving Impact Wrestling, leaving her wrestling career possibly. But the fans, they all remember what Gail Kim did for wrestling, and even Tessa Blanchard acknowledged that Gail Kim was women's wrestling long before there was a women's wrestling revolution. Gail Kim did a lot for the wrestling business and she gave back a lot as well, but it was Tessa Blanchard coming up with that victory, showing why she earned her respect. Her father, Tully Blanchard, he was proud of her. That's what he told her after her match. But up next we had a double main eventer. We had two main events. That first one was for the Impact Wrestling World Championship. We had Brian Cage taking on Johnny Impact, the champion, and the special guest referee was Lance Storm. On April 26th on Impact Wrestling last week on the Pursuit channel and the Twitch app, before their match at Rebellion, we all learned from Johnny Impact and Taya Valkyrie that they actually had close links with Lance Storm, as Johnny Impact was trained in OVW by Lance Storm while Lance trained Taya in Canada. Now, because of these close connections, Johnny and Taya thought that they had Lance Storm bought, but Lance Storm, even as a special guest ref, he said that he could not be bought, and he super kicked Johnny Impact. Earlier in the night, during Rebellion, realization set in that Lance Storm wasn't just automatically going to do favors for Johnny Impact, but Johnny had another plan. Just like Brian Cage didn't see Johnny Bravo coming, that senior referee that was corrupted by Johnny Impact, who tripped Brian Cage and cost him his match previously. Johnny Impact didn't think that Brian Cage or Lance Storm, the new special guest referee, he didn't think that they would see his new plan coming, and they sure wouldn't see the Starship of Pain coming either. So during the match at Rebellion, Johnny Bravo tried to interfere, and Lance Storm was out briefly after a cut to the back of his head. Now later into that match, Lance Storm did come back, and he restored order as he took out Johnny Bravo, that official that Johnny Impact previously corrupted, like I mentioned. With Lance Storm taking back control of his officiating duties, Brian Cage was also able to hit his finisher, the Drill Claw, to defeat Johnny Impact and become the new Impact Wrestling World Champion. So after all Brian Cage went up against in this match against Johnny Impact, out of nowhere, internationally known Michael Elgin, who previously competed in Ring of Honor and New Japan Pro Wrestling, Elgin showed up at Rebellion while Brian Cage secured the win to crown himself as the new world champion. But Elgin attacked the machine, and Elgin sent Brian Cage troubleshooting as the new champion had been taken out by Michael Elgin, and it looked like Elgin had been hunting for gold. So up next we had LAX versus the Lucha Bros for the Impact Wrestling Tag Team Championship. The Lucha Bros were the champions, and Konnan was at ringside to support LAX, but while both teams are family to Konnan, neither team has been getting along, with the Lucha Bros putting their hands in Santana and Ortiz faces, while LAX acted disrespectfully towards the Lucha Bros by telling them that LAX would kick their butts, and the finish to the match saw LAX delivering a Tower of Doom on the Lucha Bros from the ladder, but Santana stayed on top of the ladder while everyone else came toppling down. Now LAX got the win in the main event, becoming the new Impact Wrestling Tag Team Champions, but the Lucha Bros and LAX remained respectful, and they celebrated LAX's victory together along with Konnan. So that's what went down on Rebellion last night on pay-per-view, and right after these messages we'll be talking about what's coming soon to Impact Wrestling during the Lights Out report right after this.
Spoiled meat? Who has time for that? But with a dehydrator, you can keep it edible.
But I'm a vegetarian. I buy so many vegetables for my family, but each time I open the fridge, it reeks of spoiled food.
Buying fresh vegetables can get expensive, and the shelf life becomes a race to the finish. With Space Fresh X, for only 3 easy payments of $14.95, you can own this appliance and stop buying overpriced tiny bottles of dried vegetables. So what are you waiting for? Call 1-800-S-FRESH-X. That's 1-800-737-3749. Order today. Follow us on Twitter at TWL 24/7.
I'm not finished with you!
And now, let's get back to the show.
Hey everybody, this is Felix the Cat Katlovski, and we just went over what happened at Rebellion last night. We talked about how Brian Cage managed to become the new Impact Wrestling World Champion, defeating Johnny Impact. despite the fact that Johnny Bravo tried to get involved, that senior referee that Johnny Impact corrupted. And Lance Storm, he really called it down the middle. I mean, he was a fair referee. He did his officiating duties correctly, and you didn't have to worry about Lance Storm being corrupted right there. I mean, he did his job. And then LAX became the new tag team champions, beating the Lucha Bros in the main event, and it looked like the beef kind of went away because both teams celebrated together along with Conan. It didn't seem like there was any unfinished business between them, but who knows what can happen between these two teams next week, because they can get angry over any little thing. We'll see what happens between these two teams. It seems like LAX is happy to become the champions, and it's all a matter of how long can they stay the champions, because all it takes is one match and you lose it, just like with Brian Cage. He became the champion, but how long can he maintain that title reign? So that's what happened at Rebellion last night, but we're just about to talk about what's coming soon to Impact Wrestling on our Lights Out report. So let's kick it off with the Lights Out report.
Hello, ladies.
Shut up, 5. A 10 is talking.
I'm surprised you're containing yourself. It's like looking at a work of art, Josh. Scarlett Bordeaux has arrived on Impact Wrestling. Oh my God.
Hey, tell them to cover up. I will not be hot-shamed.
Talk about making an impact.
Make wrestling sexy again.
Scarlett Bordeaux has arrived. And now she's leaving, and it's, oh Lord.
Turn the lights down low, because it's time for Impact Lights Out.
So this is the Lights Out report. I am Felix the Cat Katlovski, and we are talking about Impact Wrestling, what's coming soon to the promotion. So GWN, the Global Wrestling Network, it becomes Impact Plus this Wednesday, and just like GWN used to air content like Explosion, you'll still be able to watch it all on Impact Plus. And Impact Plus will deliver a new show each month, and this upcoming month on May 4th, Impact Wrestling will be doing a joint show with House of Glory, or Hog Wrestling. That's Vince Russo's wrestling promotion. The show will be called Code Red, and it's going to be in Jamaica, New York. I believe that's going to be at the Club NYC. So this Friday, May 5th, and Saturday, May 6th, for the first time ever, Impact Wrestling is scheduled to have TV tapings for their weekly TV show on the Pursuit channel and the Twitch app. And this time, it's at the ECW Arena, now known as the 2300 Arena in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Lots of memories created in that building. But what will go down now that Rob Van Dam, RVD, has returned to Impact Wrestling? Just imagine how those hardcore fans from Philly will react to RVD in 2019 at the ECW Arena. That building was known for violent wrestling, and I can imagine Sami Callihan will be exhibiting violent behavior. Now, like I said, this is going to be Impact Wrestling's first TV tapings at the ECW Arena. So it was announced at Rebellion last night that Impact Wrestling would be returning to the Melrose Ballroom in Queens, New York on Thursday, June 6th and Friday, June 7th for 2 nights of TV tapings. And we also learned from watching Rebellion that Impact Wrestling announced Slammiversary would be taking place in Dallas, Texas in July. So that's everything that's coming soon to Impact Wrestling. Thanks for listening to Talk Wrestling Live. You've been listening to NorthCoastUnderground.com, where the underground starts with you. And we hope you join us for our next show next week when we talk more about Impact Wrestling and anything else that's happening in the headlines in the world of wrestling.
You've been listening to Talk Wrestling Live. Listen live on Mondays at 4 p.m. on NorthCoastUnderground.com.
And follow us on Twitter at TWL 24/7.
Goodbye, and good night, bad. Rest in peace.